Hey, in this lesson, we're going to be doing some inserting and creating some elements. So using the insert before, it's a method that inserts a node before the reference node as a child of the specified parent node. So what that means is that we can insert a node before another node. So going into the script, we're going to make a selection of an element. We're actually going to create a brand new element. So we'll call it div1, and then using the document create elements. Let's create a div. So this is a div that we've created, and I'll just log it out into the console so that we can track the creation process. So right now it's just a blank div. It's not sitting anywhere within the HTML yet because we haven't inserted anywhere. So now we can grab a reference and make a selection of the elements. So if we wanted to select the element with a class of nested, and let's say we want to insert it before nested1. So let's take our selection, and I'll just call it nest1. And using document query selector, we're going to select the element with a class of nested. And in this case, it's only going to be selecting all of the first elements. So what's going to happen here is it's going to select the first one with a class of nested, and we can see which one it selects. Again, going out into the console and doing a console log of nest1. So it's selecting that first element on the page. Let's make the page a little bit bigger. So zoom in on the page. So when we make a selection, it's selecting that first element. So now we've got that first element assigned to an object nest1, and we can retrieve back the parent node of nest1 by using some traversing and selecting the parent node. And we can also take a look at what gets returned back with the parent element as well. So it's going to return back the element, and that's going to return back the node. And in this case, they're going to be both the same. So they're going to be referencing that same div that contains all of the nested elements that are within them. So now we can insert before, and let's set up the parent element and selecting the parent node. So nest1 parent node, and as well we could also select it by class as well. That's another option that we have. And if we want to insert that element that we just created, so let's go ahead and we're going to insert that element. So the parent elements, and then using the insert before, let's select and insert div1, and then we need to specify what element it's going to be inserted before. So let's do nest1. And selection, so now the div is inserted on the page. And if we go into the divs, we see that that new div has been inserted. We don't have any text within it, so let's go ahead and we'll create some text and add that in. And we'll set the text content. We could also add it by node, and we'll just call it first nested. So there we see that it's been inserted just before that first div, and we've got first nested inserted there. So we needed some parameters. We needed where the parent, we needed to identify the parent. We also needed to identify what we're inserting, and then also we needed to identify where it's inserted before, because we are using the insert before method. So we did need all of these parameters. So this is the referencing node. So let's also make a selection, and we're going to select the second nested elements. So just give these ones different classes, and selecting nest2. So what do you think is going to happen if we select nested2 and then insert before nest2? So where do you think that this element is going to go? And I'm also going to apply a style, and let's set the color to be red so it stands out a little bit more. So let's refresh, and if you said that it's going to insert it before nested2, then you're correct. So that's where it's inserted, that one. So where we've made the selection of nested1 and nested2, and actually I should update those classes because I've got the nested2 and I've got nested1. So it's a little bit confusing there. So let's select and update this to 2 and to 3, and then now it's going to insert it between 1 and 2. So let's refresh, and it's inserting the content between 1 and 2. So there's also insert after. So let's make a selection of this, and instead of insert before, we're going to do insert after, and we're going to use that same div. So what do you think is going to happen here? Where do you think that the first nested element is going to be sitting? We're inserting it before nest 2, and now we're inserting it after nest 2. So if you said that we're going to throw an error, then you're correct, because insert after is not actually a function. But that's okay, because we can actually fix that. So we can use actually insert before, but we need to navigate to the next sibling. So selecting the element of nest 2 and taking the next sibling value of that. So it's going to move it over to the next element, and I'll actually console log out that value. So console log, so that we can see what that looks like within the console, so which one we're moving and navigating to. And once we do that, then we can indeed insert after, because now it's moving over to the third item in the list. And that's how you can add in the ability to do insert after using insert before, so there's no method again for that. You can also apply different prototypes to those. So we can select the element, and this is going to represent the entire element, setting up an element prototype. And let's do an append before. So we're going to create a function that's append before. So give the function taking in the element, and it's going to take the elements and parent node, and then using insert before, it's going to take whatever this element is and the element that was passed in. So taking in the parent and whatever the element that was passed in. And also let's do a prototype for element, prototype, and append after. So that's if we want these functions, we can always create the prototypes for them. So this is just a quick example of how to create prototypes. So take the element and move to the parent node, and then using the insert before, as we saw that there is no insert after, so that's why we need to create it. So we'll select the element that we want to insert, so using this to reference that element that we're inserting, so same as what we're doing with the div 1. And then we're selecting the element and getting its next sibling in order to insert afterwards. So now we are ready to try the prototypes that we created. So selecting the element that we've just created. So let's select div 1. And this has been applied to all of the elements. And then now we can use append before and append after. So they're available for us. And then we need to specify where we're appending it after. So we've already got that selected. And I'm going to create one more element so that we can demo both of them at the same time. And I'll call it second nested. And then this one can have a color of blue. And give it div 2, div 2. And this way, so just as we appended after, let's append before. And using div 2 up our prototypes, so at the top. And that way they work. So we've appended second and first. And actually, let's swap those around so that we're appending first and second. So first and second, and we'll swap those around. So 2 to 1. And that's how you can set up prototypes to append content before and after. So in the upcoming lesson, we're going to look at some more options to append and prepend with JavaScript.